Welcome back, everybody, to another edition here of the Auburn Undercover podcast, Thursday Night Live, a special edition of the show. Nathan King here with Jason Caldwell. It is obviously not Thursday night. It is Thursday. Happy Thanksgiving to everyone as this episode is published. Kind of like when they play Monday Night Football on like a Saturday because of moving things around. That's what we're doing today. So
we still call it Thursday Night Live.
Yes, for sure. Happy Thanksgiving. A Turkey Day edition here. Obviously, didn't want to put it out the night of Thanksgiving. So whether you've got travel or got some downtime with the family, we appreciate y'all for joining us today. This is the holiday week Iron Bowl Maui Invitational Combine episode. And Jason, as if the Iron Bowl week isn't eventful enough, and people aren't already enjoying the look ahead to that game. Incredible week of basketball for the Auburn Tigers, and they come away as only the third team in SEC history to win the Maui Invitational.
Yeah, it's pretty remarkable that we're sitting here a few days before an Iron Bowl game in Tuscaloosa, and we lead with basketball, and rightfully so. That's what Bruce Pearl has brought to Auburn. I don't know that Auburn will be the number one team in the country. It may be hard to move Kansas out of that spot, but with Gonzaga losing, I think Auburn's probably going to be the number two team in the country this time next week, and nobody will have a better resume than Auburn has at this point in the season after doing what they've done. Already with a win over Houston, and then you go out there and beat a really good Iowa State team, and then just throttle North Carolina, and then throttle Memphis to win a Maui Invitational. And Nathan, this is something I've been watching for 30 plus years. This time of year, and never in my lifetime did I ever think that, we've already seen Auburn play in one, but to win one of those, I was like, no, that's reserved for UConn and North Carolina and Kentucky and people like that. To see Auburn do it, but to see them do it the way they did, just remarkable. And man, Janai Broome is the guy for this team. But this is an Auburn basketball team that's got so many other guys that it makes it really, really difficult for a team to handle them. And, the championship game, Dylan Caldwell had probably the game of his life. He's had some good games, but, they were able to get to the rim over and over again. It was just a fun 3 days, less than 48 hours of basketball to see what Auburn did.
That element of it is just unbelievable. And what Bruce and Dylan Caldwell were talking about post-game tonight, 2 games in 18 hours. And the turnaround yesterday was 15 hours because obviously you had to play that game.
Yep.
The coaching staff, Bruce Pearl said, and look, this is Bruce Pearl's one of the best coaches in the country. This is a staff that gets a lot of credit from him whenever they do stuff like this, whenever they win a tournament, or they're having a good season. He makes sure to give them credit, because it's really important to have a core like this that's been together. Mike Burgermaster is doing some great things. Stephen Pearl is doing some great things. This whole group, Bruce Pearl credited that scout. He said by the time he got back to the hotel last night, the Memphis scout was on his desk, ready to go. And boy, they did not look like a team playing their third game in 3 days. And Memphis had more rest. For this game. Just really impressive for them to make that quick turn.
There's talking about Damian Davis too, strength and conditioning. Just having guys prepared to play, and guys were cramping yesterday and no issues today. Just to see them, it's all around. It's every part of it. You think about the assistant coaches, and somebody asked me in my mailbag last week, how do you prepare for this when you have to turn it? You do it by preparing before you get there. And, you talked about it even during the summer. They would have days where, hey, this day's North Carolina. This day is going to be Iowa State. This day is going to be Memphis. But they also did UConn. At least to give you an idea of what a team is going to look like. So, hey, if we do this, you remember that? Remember what we went over? Just a couple things. But the detail obviously was there and done. And, it's hard to say much more than glowing positives for what this Auburn basketball team's accomplished in just a couple of weeks.
Yeah, talking about this game in particular here on Wednesday, as Jason mentioned, they get a couple ranked wins. This game, technically not a ranked win. I think it will be next week. I think Memphis, for what they did, will be a ranked opponent. What matters more is that they've got 4 quad 1 wins. And
Yeah.
I know the net rankings aren't out yet. They actually come out next week, so that'll be something to look at. But neutral court gets a big boost. Memphis is a team, metrics-wise, that will be good all year. They're in a good league. They're 4-0 in quad 1 early in the season, which is
4-0 quad 1 with you still got Duke, you still got Purdue, you still got Ohio State, not to mention your SEC schedule. I mean, we've talked about it the last few years. It's been the one bugaboo for Auburn basketball. It's been kind of the lack of those. They already got more quad 1 wins than I think they had 3 last year.
Had 3.
Yeah, you already got more quad 1 wins that will stay that way. And you're right, Memphis. After watching Memphis play, now Auburn played really well. After watching them play for a couple of days, I'd be really surprised if that team isn't a top 5 seed team when you get to NCAA tournament time because of what I think they're going to do in their conference.
Yeah, I think they got a good chance to win their league. UAB was picked to win that league. I don't know if UAB is that good this season. They're probably good, but not good enough to win the league. Memphis might be the favorite there now. You've got guard play like that. That's going to take you a long way. But yeah, it's 90-76. Auburn gets the win. More tremendous offensive basketball for this team, and we talked about it a little bit toward the beginning. And I guess we'll touch on Janai Broome. Tournament MVP here over the course of 3 days. Let me get to his stat line. In 3 games, 21.6 points per game, shoots 52% from the floor, 46% from 3, and 79% from the foul line. So 80% from the foul line, basically. 15 rebounds, 4.3 assists, 3 blocks, 1.3 turnovers. You saw it against North Carolina as well. He started these last 2 games there's just nothing you can really do when Auburn is scheming him up that well. He's getting National Player of the Year recognition now more so than he did before, and for good reason. Right now, he's the front runner. Right now, this is your best player in college basketball, and Auburn is utilizing him to his maximum potential right now.
We've seen guys have stretches where they're really good. I don't know that we'll see Janai Broome stretch run. At the end of the year, look up and it's 21-15. But if you're 19-10 and you have a bunch of these double doubles in a row, you're going to be absolutely in the conversation, especially with what it looks like this Auburn team's going to do. The length of the season. That's a big part of it. Bruce Pearl said, best player on a great team. This is a really good player on a team that is going to be right there, it looks like. And, because of, we're used to Bruce Pearl's teams playing defense, and this team can play defense. Maui's a little bit of an anomaly because the rims are pretty soft. They're pretty shooter friendly out there. But you look at offensively what this Auburn team can do, and it feels so much different than any Auburn team we've seen under Bruce Pearl because, obviously Broome's going to get his. And you think about, well, who else? Chad Baker-Mazara is getting his and playing really good basketball. And you think about those 2 guys. Then you think about the horde of other guys that on a given night can give you 15 to 20. And there's so many other options. Miles Kelly, as Bruce said, banged up his wrist a little bit, wasn't even really a factor in this game offensively. He scored 90 points. It's going to make it really difficult for opponents, especially the way Janai Broome is playing right now.
And on the other side of things, in that front court, we talked about it all offseason. That double big lineup was interesting. I think we had our questions about whether they would actually roll with it. And then we get to the season and, believe the head coach is probably something that people should do because he just kept rolling with it and kept sticking with it and believing in it. And he, I think, gave some good transparency to that tonight. Bruce Pearl said there were times over the summer where he was like, it wasn't working very great. And Caldwell and Broome admitted that. But it was something they really wanted to do and believed could be executed at a high level. You're not going to see this every night. And we really haven't seen it up to this point with those 2 guys. It is the ceiling, though, and is a good sign for the chemistry between those 2 guys. Caldwell, 18 points, 8 of 8 shooting, hit a 3-pointer. A lot was going right for Auburn. A lot more is going to go right when your guys doing that. You're
not going to beat this Auburn team if Dylan Caldwell or really anybody goes 8 for 8, but especially him. And I think, going into the night, I said, look, if I'm an opponent, I'm going to double Janai Broome pretty much every time he touches the basketball. You see the former guard in him come out in those situations and how much, he had 5 assists in the first half. When you do that and he shares the basketball and guys are making shots, this becomes a very potent offense. And if you play Janai Broome head up, then he's a guy that might score 35. And so it's a pick your poison kind of thing. And when Dylan Caldwell can get to the rim and opposite Janai, and they can do some of those things, it makes it almost impossible. And yeah, I mean, there's not a whole lot I can say about the way Janai Broome is playing right now. I mean, in my lifetime, there's been some really good Auburn basketball players. You think about Charles Barkley and Chuck Person and Chris Morris and those guys that came through. Jeff Moore they had some big guys, and obviously you think about Chris Porter, and then we've seen Jabari and the guys that have come through here. I don't know that we've seen a stretch against great competition like what Janai Broome has put up, these last few weeks.
Yeah, he speaking of Jeff Moore, gets a shout out statistically tonight. Janai Broome becomes the first Auburn player with 5 straight double-doubles, 5 straight games with double-double since Jeff Moore in 1988. And
yep.
So, that's been that was the thing last season that was so impressive about what Janai did was he went from being a pretty good player, second team All-SEC, to a guy that just rolled out of bed and got 16 and 9 automatically. And then from there, it was gravy. It was like, what else is he going to do? Is he going to hit a bunch of threes? Is he going to make his free throws? Is he going to block shots? And so just continuing to build upon that. I think if you had told anybody, hey, Janai Broome's going to come back and he's going to be even better. Now, look, long season to go, but talking about what is in front of us. If you told anybody that, really, really dangerous is what you would describe Auburn as. And to your point, Jason, talking about the other guys, the horde of guys for this team, Chaney Johnson, who's been our guy since the preseason, hasn't slowed down, still really, really confident. Miles Kelly was not able to have it, but he did against North Carolina. He was one of their best players. Denver Jones is confident when he takes three-pointers. Chad Baker-Mazara is a really, really confident offensive player. Tahad Pettiford does a great job running that second group. This was a good Chris Moore week. Chris Moore made a lot of hustle plays. He had 2 assists in the first half, making a couple saves out of bounds, offensive rebound that led to a three-pointer. And so it kind of was play the hits for Auburn in terms of best of. You get your three-point shooting. They shot well this week. You get your player of the year candidate going off, and then you get your depth. When that works, this team is going to be really difficult to beat. And like you said, we'll see where they sit on Monday. Maybe they're my thing about them being number 1 is that they got so much exposure this week. Maui is so big, a lot of voters watch them.
Who you beaten, when you start beating those type, I think everybody's they already beat Houston. You backed it up this week. If you beat Houston and you lose a couple of these games, people go, it might have been a fluke. You look at it now and you go, nope, that team. You hear people now that have influence in college basketball going, I think they're the best team in the country. When those things start happening, in the end, it doesn't matter. I mean, you're 2, you're 1, whatever it is. But I do think this is a team. And one of the things we talked about, Nathan, for quite a while, really since last year, the veteran presence. I saw a quote from Bruce tonight going, look, Janai Broome's not going to let these guys celebrate too much. That's what's needed because you could get caught up in a run like this and go, well, we've arrived, we've made it. I think they already knew they were there. I think now this is like, okay, and I can't help but remember and think about it and going, these guys also know, but they got on a run last year and then lost to Yale in the first round of the NCAA tournament. So all it takes is that quickly to lose some momentum and everything changes. So, but this feels like a team that has a whole lot more good basketball in it.
Yeah, like you said, AP poll doesn't matter in basketball, doesn't matter really in anything, but Auburn's Ken Palm number 1. By the way, they moved to offensive rating number 1 tonight. Again, you mentioned the defense this team usually plays. Right now, just a wagon on offense with the way they move through Broome and they're scheming up stuff. We'll see Duke next week. That game is going to be – and Duke fell to Kansas, but it's still going to be phenomenal.
They've lost to Kansas and Kentucky in 2 neutral court games. Cooper Flagg, probably the number 1 overall pick. When the draft comes around this time, really good really good team, but a lot of young guys. They do have a few veterans, though, in the backcourt. But, yeah, and I think you start talking about a team that will have every chance to come out and, it'll be we've seen it. The teams they've played have been better maybe early in the season, but it won't be as difficult a challenge as it will be going to Cameron Indoor Stadium.
Yep, it's the one they've been looking forward to. Auburn wins the Maui Invitational. Bruce Pearl scheduled this non-conference because he believed in this team and thought they'd be able to do it. flying colors so far. Could not ask for better. You've beaten every good team on your schedule. You beat the crap out of a couple teams this week, and so would not be surprised if they're KenPom number one. I think they'll probably be net number one next week, I would think, since that's a very resume-driven thing. So Duke next week for Auburn. Plenty of Auburn basketball coverage to come. We know it's Iron Bowl week. We will not slow down one bit covering the Tigers. On Thanksgiving, I'll have a notebook on the side for what I saw this week and kind of dive some more into stuff. And so, but Jason, we will get into the Iron Bowl now.
16 minutes in almost.
Yeah, just a game that's happening on Saturday. So interesting. This one, Alabama goes in with 3 losses before the Iron Bowl for the first time since Saban's first season. Because obviously they had 3. Auburn gave them that 3rd loss in 2010. Auburn is in a position like they were against Texas A&M, and this is exactly what they wanted. They wanted to be the team that didn't have anything to lose, that was coming in loose. You saw the comments from players this week. They've embraced it, and I think that's the right mindset for this team now. Find some confidence. If you go out and lose, you were already having a losing season. If not, you might catch Bama a little shell-shocked after they're probably knocked out of the playoff.
Yeah, I think probably Alabama still feels like they got a shot, and they're going to need some help and from probably 3 or 4 different things to happen up there. But you look at this one and go, everything's all about matchups. In this game, you're going to get somebody's best shot. So people kind of made a big deal about comments. Comments aren't going. I mean, these guys are already going. They're going to be ready to play, and they got embarrassed Saturday at Oklahoma. That's about as bad as an Alabama team has played in a long time. They'll be ready to play Saturday, whether what DeMarcus Riddick said or not. It ain't gonna matter. For this Auburn team, embrace your confidence a little bit now. I probably wouldn't have said anything, just the way I roll a little bit, but I think you look at it and can you continue to make plays on offense? Can you make some big plays in the passing game? Can you do those things? I still believe this is a really difficult matchup for Auburn's defense. It reminds me a lot of Saturday of Texas A&M, big physical offensive line, athletic quarterback. And Oklahoma was able to contain because they can win with 4. It's been really hard for this Auburn defense to win with 4 up front. And when you start having to send more guys, then it makes it really difficult. And so to me, how does Auburn's defense hold up Saturday? I think that's even more of a question maybe than Auburn's offense. And it wouldn't seem like that was the case after Alabama got beat 24-3 last week, but this feels like more of a defense game for me.
Yeah, that was, like you said, an anomaly for them on the road. First time they hadn't scored a touchdown. Alabama hasn't since the game of the century in 2011 when they played LSU. And so it's something they've not been used to. Milroe, I mean, lots of criticism for him this week. The comments back and forth with him and DeMarcus Riddick. The thing is that Auburn has a game plan for a quarterback spy. They're not one of these teams that's going out and trying to generate it. Like, they have their spy. They have their stuff that they know they can do. But like you said, different animal. Alabama will play with a lot more confidence in Bryant-Denny Stadium. Jalen Milroe has throughout his career been better there. If they can contain him and can slow his running ability, that's proven to be point number 1. Yeah. We'll see if they're able to do it.
That's it. Yeah. Like, you look at the 2 games, their 2 biggest wins of the season for me were Georgia and LSU. And you look at those, and in those 2 games, Jalen Milroe had 28 carries for 302 yards and 6 touchdowns in those 2 games. And so you look at it, and I mean, that's about almost half of his total. He has 14 rushing touchdowns, I believe. So in just those 2 games, those are the 2 best games that Alabama's played, and they featured him in a run game. And we heard from Hugh Freeze on Monday say, look, we expect him to be a big part of the run game. So for Auburn, to me, that's where it starts. Then you figure it out. If you can slow him down and you say, hey, going to make you throw the football. That's the thing that you look at. Peyton Thorne's numbers are considerably better than Jalen Milroe's this year throwing the football. But you look at it and you go, can Auburn create some pass rush, keep him in the pocket, and make him deliver and throw some of those things? He is a dynamic guy. And Auburn is living proof that if you don't get him on the ground, he can make something happen by keeping a play alive. And so, how much do you learn from that? Can you send 6, 7 guys all day? No, you can't. I think you do some, but there comes in the danger of giving up a 65, 70-yard touchdown run like LSU did and completely changing the game. So, yeah, I mean, I think it's a difficult challenge. But this Auburn defense has played pretty well. My guess is that they are going to look at what Texas A&M did well against them last week and prepare for Alabama to try to do some of the same things.
And of course, and we're not coaches, but there's stuff on tape from what Oklahoma did. Was talking to our Bama 24/7 guy today, and he was sort of saying that their blueprint, it's not Tennessee. He had similar rushing numbers, but he was kind of comparing the two, saying Oklahoma's game plan against Milroe was different. And so it's at the end of the year, no secrets anymore. So obviously coaching is a big part of this. DJ Durkin has done a good job week to week, preparing them for each opponent. Ryan Williams on the outside is, Jeremy Bernard's a good player too at receiver. Auburn fans know Ryan Williams. Auburn's got good corners. I don't know. The thing is, though, sometimes I think you're just not going to be able to. He'll just do his thing.
Yeah,
you can limit that to maybe just one of those crazy plays. That's better than 3 or 4.
Correct, and it comes back to, can you make Jalen Milroe uncomfortable? That's the teams that have had the most success have been able to do that, and they've been able to do it with 4. And that's what Oklahoma was able to do. They were able to do it with 4, do some of those things. That's the thing. For me, this game is, I think Keldrick Falk is a guy that, we've seen he's had to beat double teams off the edge. That means somebody in the middle has to beat a one-on-one block. And so we've seen Malik Blockton be the most explosive with that group, Bobby James and Travis, but they need those other guys to step up and make some plays in the middle of the defense to give them some interior pass rush. And it's not easy. The Alabama offensive line is really big. The last two, these Texas A&M and now Alabama, the 2 biggest offensive lines Auburn will see this season. Auburn did not handle A&M's very well last week, especially trying to rush the passer. It'll be as much of a challenge this week trying to get to Jalen Milroe as well.
On the other side, like we talked about before, Auburn coming in with confidence is really, really key. Went 4 overtimes, but you score 43 points, scored 31 in regulation.
Yep.
Against Texas A&M, that passing game continues to be doing good things. Peyton Thorne's got an opportunity to continue those trends. I think it starts, and this is obvious, most games are this way, but it'll start with Jarquez Hunter. Jason, the thing is, Auburn's run the ball on Alabama the last 2 seasons actually really well. Jarquez Hunter has been a part of that. Alabama loses their second leading tackler, Deontay Lawson. They don't really have anybody else in that mold. Jahad Campbell's a really good player for them in that spot too. But if they can get Hunter, 100 yards, again, you could say this any game, 100 yards for him, I think gives Auburn a really good starting point as an offense to try to open up, Coleman and Lambert Smith. Yeah,
I think you have to have some success. You don't have to have 285, but you have to have some success running the football. And we've heard Hugh Freeze going, look, you gotta win first down the majority of the time. And that's going to be a key for Auburn. Can you win first downs? And to me, some of that may be the thing we've seen the last couple of weeks. And it's been a different offense for Auburn the last couple of weeks. Some of that's by short passing game, 4 5-yard passes on first down to get you going a little bit. Those are chain movers and things that make a defense have to go, uh-oh, you mean I can't run blitz on first down? No. So I think they've done a good job of kind of mixing it up some. But you're right. You got to be able to run the football. Alabama, still pretty good against the run overall when you look at the numbers, but they've also given up more than 200 yards 3 times. So they've given up 200 or more yards to 3 different teams this year running the football. Held Georgia to 80, but I went back and looked, and Georgia's only handed the ball off to a running back 18 times that night. They just basically said, we're going to throw it every down. I think for Auburn, you go, hey, got to run the football. You know what you got to do. And I like the way they've done Malcolm Simmons, keeping him involved in making the safeties have to be cognizant that, hey, we may run wide, and you better be prepared, because if you're not prepared, if you're stacked up in the middle and Malcolm Simmons gets the ball, he's housing it. He's going to have one of those. Maybe Saturday. We're waiting for him that one time to split a seam and go. And they're going to pay attention to Jarquez Hunter after what happened to them last week. Now, a lot of that was quarterback run. But if you're Auburn, you got to at least, win some battles up front in the run game.
Yeah, and that sets things up for Peyton Thorne, a guy who's been more confident. You and I talked in the pregame show before Texas A&M. And you were saying it'd be great to get Cam Coleman involved early. They did that, and then it kind of, it opened things up for him. That confidence for him, you've seen that. I'm not saying he is certainly is a guy to watch, of course, starting receiver. But it just feels like they have a little bit more confidence right now. Alabama's got lots of good players on defense, but Jason, we'll turn it over to recruiting here in a minute. This will be a 30-minute show, by the way, for everybody instead of our usual 45-minute. But it's just, again, it's an interesting feeling in this game. It does not feel like Auburn has to have this one, but just seeing Auburn fans talking this week, I mean, it's the most hopeful they've felt in a road Iron Bowl in quite some time. It's the smallest point spread since 2014 in a road Iron Bowl.
That'd be the last time. I mean, you look and even that game, you score a bunch of points, but you gave up a bunch. Since 2010, Alabama's averaged 46 points a game at home against Auburn. I mean, that's not a small sample size either. So you start talking about it. That's the first thing is this Auburn offense is playing better, but you can't go and expect to score 35 and win this game. Your defense has to get off the field. And Alabama has created turnovers defensively. Auburn was at 9 in 11 games.
Yeah, I think so.
I think if Auburn hopes to win this game Saturday, I think your defense has to get your ball back a couple of times. I think you got to create a couple of turnovers to win this one. I mean, I think you're capable of winning it, but I think it's going to take something like that because going on the road there, that's still a place they play really well at, and I think you're going to have to get something from that defense other than just stops. You're going to have to get some field position a couple of times to help that offense out. 2:30
p.m. Central Time on ABC, not CBS, for the first time in I guess forever.
Early 80s, the bow over the top, and some of those were all ABC games. So it's been a long time, but they were in Birmingham, Legion Field back then. So
there you go. So no more CBS jingle. Our Paramount overlords. We're so sorry about that. So should be a good one. Looking forward to the Iron Bowl. We will touch on some recruiting storylines. Signing day, as of right now, only a week away, and we will bring in our Christian.
Yeah, Jason, we're by the time people are listening to this now, 6 days away from signing day. It'll be on December 4th this year. Obviously, a much different timeline for the recruiting cycle than previous years, as we've touched on previous shows earlier this week as well. Definitely changes things. Asked Hugh Freeze about it earlier this week. He said, look, there's pluses and minuses. He said, quickly figuring it out that if you don't have a home game for that final weekend of the year, you're at a little bit of a disadvantage. And he's like, that'll be the case every other year. But every other year you have the Iron Bowl to end the season to bring in recruits. Jason, as we're 6 days away, I had a VIP piece over at auburnundercover.com of the 6 biggest storylines 6 days away. You don't know those storylines because I've written them and didn't tell you. For you, what would be some of the biggest storylines for you with this recruiting class right now?
Yeah, I think first one, because of the efforts you've made in the state of Alabama to try, look, when they got here, they said, look, we want to recruit the state, we want to win the state. To me, Naeem Offord is one of those big storylines. You've done a good job recruiting in the secondary. You're playing young guys. He's the number one player in the state, and you've got 8 out of the 10 players. If you could get that guy, a 5-star, committed to Ohio State, this is an Auburn class that then, to me, would, as long as you hold on, your guys would be cemented as a top 5 class and maybe top 3 or 4. That's one for me. And then, I think it's probably holding serve would be the other one. You start talking about keeping the guys you have, and we feel good about a lot of this class. I think you look in 2 defensive linemen are probably the guys that may be the biggest question marks right now. Jared Smith and Nate Marshall, maybe the two guys you maybe have a little bit of a question mark about. But I think overall you look at it and you keep these guys together and add a Naeem Offord. To me, those are 2 storylines. You do those things alone. If you don't do anything else, then you go, hey, we'll take that. But there's other options. But those are probably the 2 biggest ones for me.
Yeah, those 2 guys that you mentioned, keeping an eye on Elijah Melendez as well.
Yeah.
That one's getting interesting. He visited for the Texas A&M game, but man, his interview did not give you the warm and fuzzies about how his Auburn commitment is right now. Now he said it's good, but then didn't give a whole lot. So we'll see there. And you mentioned what getting Naeem Offord could potentially do for Auburn, messing around with the class calculator. Right now, they're just under 296 total points on 24/7. Getting Naeem would put them over 302 points, which right now at 302.1 is Ohio State. Well, obviously, if you got Naeem, Ohio State would be going down. Auburn would be going up. That would put Auburn up to number 3 in the country, not counting Darion Smith as well, the Tennessee defensive line commit. Texas is there at number 4. Alabama's number 2 at 302.5. Georgia number 1 at 304.6 points right now. So messing around with that a little bit. Guy like Darion Smith, high 3-star look. It's a guy that Auburn really, really likes. He's not going to move the needle a ton in terms of the ranking and moving up in the team rankings. Naeem Offord moves you up a spot or 2 by himself.
Yep.
And then you look at just a couple of the other big fish that are out there. Usman Chroma, if you can flip him away from Georgia, that's taken away from 1, putting him in your class.
Yep.
And then Justice Terry, everyone projects him to Georgia. We still think Georgia's the odds-on favorite, but Auburn has some hope after their official visit this past weekend. And he's a guy just like Naeem, a 5-star. You get him, he single-handedly boosts your class up a spot just because of how many points he adds to the total. So realistically, if you get Darion Smith and you get Naeem Offord, even if you lose a guy or 2, you're still probably cemented in that top 5. And then if you just, if you manage to keep everybody and you get Naeem and you get Darion Smith and you don't even get Chroma, you don't even get Justice Terry or any of those guys, then you're probably locked in right around the top 3 range. So, Jason, unless you have anything more, we'll probably wrap it up there. Obviously, not a ton since our last recruiting show on Tuesday.
Yeah, I think probably just the other thing is obviously once we get through the Iron Bowl on Saturday, then it's full steam ahead towards Wednesday, and so we'll have updates kind of hearing the latest, all those things leading up to Wednesday, full coverage on Wednesday, and it's going to be a busy day. 7-day state championship game that night in Birmingham, and me and Christian will cover Auburn recruiting during the day in Auburn, have a press conference, and drive to Birmingham and cover a 7-day state championship game that night. It's the same night as the Auburn Deep basketball game, but then we'll be on hand for the 3A, 1A, 5A games on Thursday, and then the 4A, 2A, 6A games on Friday. And there's the potential to have a bunch of Auburn commitments, in Birmingham, and there actually be Auburn signees by then when you get there. But you think about just a 7-day game, obviously, you're looking at 3 guys from Thompson alone that have made a run that'll be there. Obviously, some guys at Central Phoenix City that Auburn's recruiting as well. And then, you think potentially you could have a Parker-Saraland matchup with 2 Auburn defensive linemen on the field at the same time. Alvin Henderson's still alive, and others. So should be fun, and looking forward to a busy week coming up.
Yeah, it'll be a lot of fun. And for those of y'all that are not over at auburnundercover.com, teased this during our recruiting show earlier this week. You can join now at 75% off. We got our Black Friday deal rolling early. Really not a better time to join because it's our best deal of the year. Auburn basketball just won the Maui tournament, and now they're getting ready to go play Duke. Signing day is coming up. The Iron Bowl is coming up. Look, we have had 12 plus stories a day on the site all throughout this week. We're not stopping now. As people are listening to this on Thanksgiving, we're going to have quite a few stories as well. Just that time of the year, busy time of the year. So if you're not a subscriber to the site, highly recommend coming to check us out for that promo. And the other thing is, once that promo ends after a year, you get access to Paramount Plus as well, complimentary with the subscription once the promo is over. Yeah. You're paying full price as well if you decide to stick with us, which I think once you join on, you'll probably stick with us. So appreciate everyone for tuning in on this Thanksgiving and maybe listening on Black Friday or something like that, waiting in line at the store or driving back home or driving to Tuscaloosa or whatnot. Appreciate AU Club for being the sponsor of this show. Obviously not on location today because of Thanksgiving and whatnot, but after having dinner there last Thursday, I kind of wish that was just my Thanksgiving meal on Thursday night.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we did Wednesday Night Live and had dinner there before. I don't know if I could eat that much and then do Thanksgiving the next day. So it's go check them out if you haven't. Great deals, great options. Golfers, swimmers, fitness center, restaurant. Just want to come hang out. Yeah, check out Auburn University Club.
Yep. So appreciate them. Appreciate everyone for tuning in. And we'll catch you guys